Have you ever felt that the harder you row, the faster your boat sinks? You follow all the advice, you optimize your day, you declare war on procrastination, but the only thing you feel at the end of this battle is not victory. It's the feeling of your strength irrevocably leaving you. And you are exhausted because to solve this problem, the modern world handed you a map. But this map is a skillful lie. There is another map, not printed, but alive. Ancient. It is not drawn on paper, but in the very fabric of the human soul, in its dark, unexplored canyons. And Carl Jung was one of those rare cartographers who dared to descend into this darkness to read its signs. Over the next hour, we won't give you another life hack. We will do something more important. You will understand why your willpower has become your enemy. You will learn what vital message your fatigue carries, and you will see the path to a source of energy that you stopped looking for. Because all your life you have been looking in the completely wrong place. If you are ready to stop fighting and start listening. Our dive begins right now. Let's talk about this feeling. For real. Not about the banal fatigue at the end of the day, but about something deeper, more fundamental. About the quiet, low-frequency hum of exhaustion that plays behind the scenes of all your thoughts, from the moment you wake up until your restless sleep. About the taste of ashes that remains in your mouth after another so-called productive day, when you did everything you were supposed to, but felt nothing but emptiness. You look at your to-do list, at your calendar, marked out in blocks of efficiency, and you see not a map of opportunities, but the bars of your prison. Each task is another bar. Each meeting is another lock. The joy that was once the fuel for your endeavors has become a distant, almost indistinguishable memory, like a melody from childhood. Now there is only duty and heaviness. This is not the loud pain of tragedy, but the quiet corrosion of meaning that slowly eats away at the days from the inside. You are the most efficient ghost in your own life. Your body is here. It performs actions, answers emails, nods in the right places. But you yourself, you are somewhere else. You watch your life from the sidelines, like a movie in which the main character has forgotten their role, but continues to mechanically deliver the lines. You function flawlessly, but you have stopped living. And in the center of this quiet emptiness, I know what you tell yourself. That you have to try harder, that something is wrong with you, that others are coping, but you are not, that you are lazy, weak, broken. And that is why the first thing you must hear, the fundamental truth on which we will build everything else, is this. You are not broken. You are not lazy. Your condition is not a sign of your personal failure. It is an absolutely sane, healthy, and reasonable reaction of your soul to the unhealthy and human demands that you and the world around you place on it. Your psyche is not failing. It is protecting you. Your exhaustion is not a malfunction. It is a form of deep, instinctive intelligence. It is a spiritual and psychological fever whose purpose is to burn away what is not truly you, to force you to stop, to force you to finally listen. Therefore, you are not going crazy. On the contrary, you are beginning to awaken to the truth of your life. And this truth, though painful now, is the only path to healing. We have established that you are not broken, but awakening. And it is here on this threshold that the real journey begins, because it requires of us a radical, almost unthinkable shift in perspective. And now, what if I told you that your burnout is not the enemy? That your apathy is not a disease? What if all of this, your fatigue, your inability to get it together, is actually an act of great life-saving wisdom? Imagine it this way. Your soul, your deepest essence, has been trying for years to reach you with whispers. It whispered in those moments when you felt an inexplicable longing while looking out the window. It spoke to you through the sudden desire to drop everything and leave, through forgotten hobbies that gathered dust on the shelf like a reproach to your duty. But you were too busy, too efficient. You didn't hear. And then, in desperation, it decided to use the only language that your over-controlling consciousness could not ignore. The language of total exhaustion, the language of complete system failure. Your apathy is not an absence of feeling. It is a form of sacred strike against a life that has ceased to be yours. Your soul is not trying to break you, it is trying to save you from a life that looks good on a calendar but feels like a betrayal of yourself. So if your exhaustion is not a problem but a message, then our main task changes. We stop trying to fix it. Instead, we must become translators. We must learn to decipher it. But here a fundamental obstacle arises. This message is written in the ancient, quiet language of the soul, and we are used to listening only to the deafening commands of our mind. To decipher this vital message, we must first understand why all our usual methods, discipline, motivation, self-control, not only don't work, but actively prevent us from hearing it. They create noise. They drown out the quiet voice that is trying to save us. Therefore, before we turn to the wisdom of Jung, we must perform a necessary act of intellectual hygiene. We must dissect the main myth of the productivity era to see exactly how it holds us captive in this destructive cycle. We must understand the anatomy of our trap. Let's look at the map that the modern world offers us. It seems so logical, so correct, and that is precisely why it is so dangerous. This map offers us 3 standard routes, 3 sensible solutions for our condition. And you have undoubtedly tried every one of them. The first prescription says, you're burned out? Then you need a vacation. You save up money, take 2 weeks, and fly off to the sea. And for a while it works. The salt air and the absence of deadlines do bring relief, but it is anesthesia, not a cure. Because the problem is not in the office, but in you. And as soon as the plane lands back home, you feel it, that same heaviness of everyday life that was patiently waiting for you at the bottom of the stairs. Sometimes it returns even stronger, fueled by the contrast between freedom and the cage. A vacation doesn't cure burnout, it just puts it on pause. The second misconception is even deeper. You have no motivation? Then you need to find a stronger why. You are told to set a more ambitious goal, to visualize success, to hang a picture of your dream on the wall. But this is like trying to inspire a person dying of thirst with speeches. The problem is not that you don't have a goal. The problem is that your inner well, from which you drew energy, has run dry. You can look at the beautiful oasis on the horizon all you want, but if you don't have the strength to take a single step, this knowledge becomes just a form of sophisticated torture. And finally, the most insidious of all misconceptions. You procrastinate? Then you need more discipline. This voice of the inner critic, disguised as a productivity guru, says that you are just not tough enough on yourself. And you start to tighten the screws. Early wake-ups, cold showers, strict schedules. But in your state, discipline is not a tool of creation. It is just a more refined tool for war against yourself. A war in which you are both the aggressor and the victim. Every act of discipline becomes an act of self-violence that only increases internal resistance and burns the last drops of psychic energy. All these solutions make the same fatal mistake. They are like trying to fix a stalled car engine by constantly and forcefully pressing the gas pedal. You are not solving the problem. You are burning the remaining fuel and completely destroying the mechanism because you are trying to treat a symptom while completely ignoring the true cause of the illness. All these solutions, vacation, motivation, discipline, are tools from the arsenal of one and the same part of you. The part that believes in control, efficiency, and willpower. To understand why they are doomed to fail, let's use a simple but incredibly profound analogy. Imagine that your entire psyche is not a monolith, but a living, creative collective. It includes artists, engineers, dreamers, gardeners, musicians, all those parts of you responsible for joy, meaning, intuition, and life force. And your conscious I, your ego, plays the role of the manager in this collective. Initially, this manager was a good one. He helped organize work, set goals, achieve results. But over time, under the pressure of the outside world and his own ambitions, he turned into a tyrant. He became obsessed with a single metric productivity. And so this tyrannical manager, ego, looks at the reports and sees productivity is falling, enthusiasm has decreased, creativity is at 0. And how does he react? He doesn't go down to the workshop to talk to the people. He doesn't ask, "Folks, what happened? Are you short on resources? Are you tired? Have we lost sight of our common mission?" No, he does what he does best. He tightens control. He introduces new KPIs. He declares war on procrastination as if it were an external enemy and not a symptom of an internal problem. He demands work on weekends, promising a bonus in the form of a vacation that will only give people a short respite before returning to the same prison. Your ego tries to solve a morale problem with a spreadsheet, not understanding that the soul needs not optimization, but poetry. And what is happening with the collective, the rest of your psyche, during this time? It is exhausted. It has run out of paint. The musicians have forgotten their melodies. The gardener sees that the garden is drying up, but he is ordered to harvest last year's fruits. They have lost their meaning. They are not working for a great purpose, but to fulfill the manager's meaningless directives. And at some point, when all the quiet requests and hints have been ignored, the collective does the only thing it can. It goes on strike. Your burnout, your apathy, your procrastination. It is not laziness or a breakdown. It is an organized, full-scale protest. It is a strike by your creative collective against the tyranny of the manager. Your soul refuses to work in inhuman conditions, and it will not budge until the manager sits down at the negotiating table. This strike is not an abstraction. It is not just a beautiful metaphor. It happens in your body every day, every hour. Your body is the stage on which this drama is played out, and every pain in your neck, every tension in your jaw, is a line in this great dialogue between the tyrant manager and the striking collective. Let's learn to notice it, and now I'm going to ask you to do something important. Not just to listen, but to feel. Pause this video in a moment and honestly answer one question for yourself. Don't think, but feel the answer. Remember the last time you forced yourself to do something? It doesn't matter what. Finishing a report when you had no strength left. Going to a meeting that made you sick to your stomach. Even forcing yourself to rest correctly when you just wanted to lie down and stare at the ceiling. Remember that moment. Now immerse yourself in it. What did you feel in your body at that moment? Not in your head, but in your body. Maybe it was tension in your shoulders, as if you were carrying an invisible weight, a tightness in your chest, making it hard to take a full breath, a chill or a knot in your stomach. Maybe you clenched your jaw. Did you feel a dull, aching pain in your lower back? Take your time. Pause the video. Stay with this sensation. What you just felt, that is the language of your inner collective. It is the physical embodiment of resistance. It is your soul, your body, your entire living system telling you a simple and clear no. Not maybe later, not I'll try, but a firm, unequivocal no. And now the second most important question. What did you do when you heard this no? What was your instinctive reaction? Did you listen? Did you ask yourself, what's happening? Why is my body reacting this way? Or did you do what the world taught you? You ignored this signal. You increased the pressure. You told yourself, pull yourself together. So in that critical moment, who did you become to yourself? A caring leader or a cruel warden? The answer to this question is the key to understanding the origins of your exhaustion. This internal split that you just felt in your body, this conflict between your conscious intention and your unconscious resistance, is not your personal problem. It is not a unique malfunction of your psyche. It is the universal fundamental drama of human existence. And there was a man, a physician and researcher, who dedicated his entire life to becoming a cartographer of these inner territories. His name was Carl Gustav Jung. Jung, working with his patients in the early 20th century, saw the same picture over and over again. Successful, strong-willed, respected people who achieved everything they wanted and yet found themselves on the verge of complete collapse, gripped by depression, apathy, and inexplicable illnesses. He understood that the psyche is not an obedient mechanism that can be programmed at will. The psyche is a living, self-regulating system like a forest ecosystem or the planet's climate, and its main immutable law is the striving for balance. Jung understood that the soul, like nature, does not tolerate monoculture. It requires diversity. And if you plant only the seeds of duty, efficiency, and control in its field for too long and too hard, it will, in an act of self-preservation, grow wild, rebellious flowers of apathy, procrastination, and fatigue on that field to restore balance. For this universal law, he found a term in ancient Greek philosophy, enantiodromia. This word means running towards the opposite. It is the law by which any extreme, upon reaching its peak, inevitably turns into its opposite. Too much light creates the darkest shadow. Excessive order leads to chaos. And an obsession with willpower and productivity leads, with iron necessity, to complete powerlessness and exhaustion. Your hyper-productivity had to turn into total exhaustion. Your over-controlling will had to face absolute sabotage. Your burnout is not an accident. It is not a mistake. It is the flawless, precise as a Swiss watch operation of the great law of psychic balance. And by understanding this, we can move from fighting it to cooperating with it. This law of psychic balance, enantiodromia, is not an abstraction. It is a dance of two great forces within each of us. To understand your burnout, we must get to know these dancers. Jung called them the ego and the self. First, let's talk about the ego. The ego is what you are used to thinking of as yourself. It is the center of your consciousness, the bright spot in the vast, dark hall of your psyche. It is your inner commander-in-chief, your I manager, your CEO. Its main task is adaptation to the external world. The ego wants order, control, predictability, and of course, social approval. It makes plans, sets goals, exercises willpower. It is the architect of your persona, the social mask you wear every day. Let's use a central metaphor that will clarify everything. If your entire psyche is a ship in the ocean, then the ego is the captain standing on the bridge. He has a map drawn by other captains. He has a compass pointing to generally accepted goals: success, wealth, status. He gives orders, and he believes that he is the one leading the ship to glory. And the greatest tragedy of the ego is that it considers itself the master of the house, not suspecting that it lives on a tiny island in the middle of a boundless ocean, which is its true nature. And what is the self? If the ego is the captain, then the self is the ocean itself. The self is not another player. It is the playing field itself. It is the center of your entire psyche, including both the conscious ego and the boundless unconscious. It is the wise, ancient ruler of your entire inner kingdom. Unlike the ego, the self does not care about social norms or quarterly reports. Its one all-consuming goal is wholeness. It strives for you to become who you are destined to be in your entirety, not just the convenient and efficient version of yourself that the ego and society approve of. The self is the music of the entire score, while the ego hears only the part of the first violin, and the self speaks not in the language of logic, but in the language of symbols, dreams, intuition, and, most importantly for our conversation, in the language of bodily symptoms. And this is where the conflict is born. The captain ego spreads his flawless map on the table and says, "We are sailing north to the island of success, full speed ahead." He ignores the signs. He doesn't notice the strange wind blowing, anxiety. He doesn't hear the ship's hull creaking, bodily pains. He doesn't see that the color of the water has changed. Intuition suggests something is wrong. He has a plan, and he will follow it no matter the cost. But the ocean self knows that the true treasure, necessary for the wholeness of the ship and its captain, is on the uncharted southern island, the island of forgotten talents, suppressed feelings, or the rejected shadow. And when all its quiet signals, the currents, the winds, the color of the water have been ignored by the captain, the ocean self does what it must. It raises a storm. This storm is your burnout. The self breaks the masts of your will, tears the sails of your motivation, and leaves the ship to drift in complete silence, so that the stubborn captain will finally look up from his false map, come out on deck, and look at the real stars. This is not a punishment, it is a rescue. Your burnout is a veto that the wise self places on the destructive, one-sided, and ultimately soul-killing plans of your ego. It is a forced stop to prevent a final shipwreck. This struggle between the captain ego and the ocean self is not just a metaphor. It is playing out in millions of lives right now. Let's see what this drama looks like in reality. Let me tell you the story of Elena. Elena was an architect, not by profession, but by calling. At the beginning of her career, she was in love with spaces, with light, with how the line of a wall could change a person's feeling. She could sit for hours on a construction site, breathing in the smell of fresh concrete and the ozone before a rain, which she loved so much. Her projects were alive. They breathed. During that period, her ego and herself were in harmony. The captain and the ocean moved in the same current. She created and was happy. Then came success. She was noticed. Major clients, prestigious commissions, articles in magazines appeared. Elena started her own firm, and without noticing it, she stopped being an artist and became a manager. Her ego was thrilled. It got everything it had dreamed of: recognition, status, control. Elena's days now consisted not of creativity, but of meetings, estimates, and deadlines. She worked 12 and sometimes 14 hours a day. Dinner consisted of coffee and anxiety. Sleep became an annoying obstacle to be minimized. The cold light of the monitor at 3 in the morning became her most faithful companion. She was building magnificent buildings for other people, but her own inner home was falling into disrepair. The joy of work disappeared, replaced by a heavy sense of duty. Her portfolio grew, while her inner world shriveled. And she didn't notice this exchange until one morning the silence in her soul became deafening. It happened suddenly. One Tuesday, she simply couldn't get out of bed, not because she was sick, but because there was not a drop of energy in her, neither physical nor mental. It was as if someone had unplugged her. That Tuesday stretched into a week, then a month. Doctors were at a loss. Her tests were normal. The diagnosis was vague: chronic fatigue syndrome, nervous exhaustion. But Elena knew it was something more. It wasn't a breakdown. It was a strike. Her soul, her inner collective, refused to go any further down this path. And then, in that forced silence, the self was finally able to reach her. Every night, Elena had the same dream. She dreamed of a beautiful, once flourishing garden behind her childhood home. But in the dream, the garden was abandoned. The earth was cracked from drought, the roses had wilted, and the old fountain in the center was dry. And in the dream, she knew with absolute certainty her one and most important task was to find water and water this garden. She would wake up with a feeling of unbearable thirst. This was not just a dream. It was a direct, desperate message from herself, pointing to what she had ignored for so long. Her own soul was dying of thirst while her ego was building impressive but lifeless sandcastles. Elena's story ends not with an answer, but with a question about the abandoned garden. And this question is not addressed to her. It is addressed to you. This abandoned garden from Elena's dream is your inner world. This is not a metaphor. It is a psychological reality. Think about it. The buildings that Elena was so diligently constructing are all the things that your ego values and strives for in the external world. This is your career, your status, your productivity, your bank account, your resume. It is everything that can be measured, shown to others, turned into an achievement. It is the part of your life that looks good on paper and on social media. And your ego, your inner manager, is absolutely obsessed with constructing these buildings. It believes that the taller and more impressive these structures are, the happier and more secure you will be. And the garden? The garden is everything else. Everything that has no external, measurable value, but is the source of all your life force. It is your ability to play, your ability to be happy for no reason, your ability to walk without a destination, your love for music that doesn't make you more productive, your relationships that require time and presence, not efficiency, your creativity for the sake of the process, not the result, your spiritual life, your connection with nature, your ability to simply be, not do. This is your inner garden. And here lies the tragedy that Elena experienced and that you may be experiencing right now. Your ego, engrossed in the construction of external buildings, has completely stopped watering this garden. It has deemed it an inefficient waste of time and resources. Why spend an hour walking in the park when you can spend it answering emails? Why read poetry when you can read a book on time management? You have become a brilliant architect of your own cage, forgetting that your true nature is to be a gardener. And now your garden is dying of thirst. Understand the very essence of this. Your exhaustion is not a lack of energy, like a car running out of gas. Your exhaustion is a symptom. It is the cry of your inner garden for water. It is the thirst of your soul that has become so strong that it has manifested on a physical level. You are trying to solve the problem by looking for new sources of energy in the external world: coffee, motivational videos, supplements. But you are looking in the wrong place. You don't need more energy. You need water. You need to return to your abandoned garden and start watering it. So what buildings are you so diligently constructing right now? And what garden is slowly dying in the shadow of these cold, flawless structures? And if the garden metaphor seems too abstract to you, let's make it extremely concrete. Let's translate the language of symbols into the language of your own unique life. Think about this, and I ask you again to be brutally honest with yourself. What specific part of yourself have you stopped watering? What exactly did you love to do before your inner manager? Ego deemed it inefficient, childish, or a waste of time? Let me help you remember. Maybe you love to draw, not to become a great artist, but just for the feeling of a pencil gliding across paper. Maybe you love to play the guitar, learning the 3 chords of your favorite song, and singing without caring if you were in tune. Maybe you love to walk without a destination, just turning into unfamiliar alleys, led by curiosity and not a GPS. What else? Maybe you read poetry, not for utility, not for intellectual development, but simply for the beauty of the language, for the music of the words. Maybe you listened to an entire music album from start to finish, just lying on the floor and looking at the ceiling, letting the sounds carry you away. Perhaps you wrote in a journal, took apart old mechanisms, talked for hours with a friend not about business, but about dreams. Perhaps you remember a boy who could watch ants for hours, or a girl who wrote stories in a secret notebook. Where are they now? What happened to all these parts of you? Understand, these are not whims. These are not hobbies to be taken up when there's time. These are vital nutrients for your soul. This is the very water your inner garden is crying out for. Each of these useless activities is a channel through which the energy of the self, the energy of wholeness, flows into your psyche. And when your ego shuts down all these channels in the name of productivity, it dooms the entire system to drought. And now I want to ask you to do something more than just think about it. I want us to take the first step toward healing together. Write in the comments below this video, what abandoned garden of yours you just remembered. What was it? Drawing? Dancing in the kitchen? Reading fantasy? You don't need to write an essay. One word, one phrase is enough. Let's not just watch this video. Let's create here, in this space, a census of forgotten joys. Let the comment feed become a living testament to how much beauty we have sacrificed for efficiency. Let this be the first symbolic act of watering these gardens. Just by naming them, we already bring a part of them back to life. I will read every comment. Let's do this together. So we've understood that our exhaustion is the cry of an abandoned garden, a desperate plea from the soul for water. But what if it's not just a cry of despair? What if it is a precise, unerring directive? Here we make the final, most important shift in our perception. Your burnout is not a failure. It is your truest compass. A normal compass points north. This inner compass points to the truth. It ruthlessly, without any sentimentality, points to everything in your life that is a lie. Pain is the great revealer of illusions, and your fatigue is the pain of a soul tired of pretending. This compass points to a job that does not nourish your soul, but only pays the bills for a life you are not living. It points to relationships that drain your energy based on convenience or fear of loneliness, not on genuine connection. It points to goals that have been imposed on you from the outside by society, by parents, by your own ego, but which were never truly yours. Your exhaustion is your soul's allergic reaction to lies. Wherever its needle points, know this. This is where you are betraying yourself. The modern world teaches us to treat a crisis like an illness that needs to be cured as quickly as possible to return to a normal state. But the wisdom of the soul offers another perspective. This is not a crisis to be survived. It is an invitation that cannot be refused, an invitation to a deeper, more honest, more authentic life. The ancient alchemists believed that to create gold, a starting material was needed, the so-called prima materia. The first matter. It was described as something dark, chaotic, formless, and heavy, like black lead. Your exhaustion, your apathy, your despair. This is your prima materia. It is not trash to be disposed of. It is precious raw material. It is this black, heavy lead of your condition, which seems useless and shameful to you, that the alchemist of the soul can and must transform into the gold of an authentic life. Your task is not to run from this darkness, but to courageously enter it, because it is precisely there that everything you lack is hidden: peace, meaning, and true strength. If your burnout is a compass pointing to lies, then the needle of this compass always points inward. The true journey begins not with changing your job, not with moving to another country, and not with a new to-do list. It begins with a fundamental, revolutionary act, a shift of loyalty. For your entire conscious life, you have been loyal to the demands of the external world. You have been a faithful soldier of your ego, which sought to conform, to achieve, to win. Now your task is to transfer this loyalty inward, to become a faithful ally of your soul, of yourself. This means learning to hear its quiet voice and trusting it more than the loud commands of the world. And the very first, most difficult step on this path is the encounter with what Jung called the shadow. In the context of our problem, the shadow is all those parts of you that your productive ego has declared enemies. It is your so-called laziness, your unproductiveness, your weakness, your need for silence and inaction, everything you are ashamed of and fight so fiercely against. You have spent years trying to exorcise these demons, not realizing they were just starved gods asking for your attention. Because it is precisely in these rejected shadow parts of yourself that the wisdom you so desperately need now is hidden. Your laziness is actually the wisdom of your body demanding recovery. Your procrastination is often the wisdom of your intuition sabotaging a meaningless or soul-damaging activity. Your weakness is your ability to be vulnerable, open, feeling, without which no genuine connection is possible. Therefore, the true solution is not an external battle, but an internal work of integration. This means you must stop the war. Your task is not to defeat your laziness, but to sit down at the negotiating table with it, to imagine it as a separate figure, as a wise though tired advisor, and to ask it questions. The next time you feel a bout of laziness or procrastination, instead of scolding yourself, try asking, what are you trying to protect me from? What important need have I been ignoring for so long that you are forced to make yourself known so loudly? Do you want me to rest? Or are you trying to tell me that the task I am about to do is meaningless? This dialogue with the shadow is the beginning of healing. It is the first step towards ceasing to be your own warden and becoming your own wisest advisor. This dialogue with the shadow parts of yourself is not an abstract philosophy. It can and should be practiced. Let me offer you two simple but powerful ways to start this conversation today. These are not life hacks for increasing productivity. They are practices for deepening wisdom. The first exercise is called symptom diary, or dialogue with fatigue. It works like this. The next time you feel a wave of fatigue, apathy, or the desire to give up, don't do what you've always done. Don't fight it. Don't try to overpower it with coffee or willpower. Instead, stop. Take a 5-minute pause, open a notebook or notes on your phone, and start writing. Address your fatigue directly as if it were a living being. Start like this. Hello, my fatigue. Then ask it a few questions and write down the very first answers that come to mind without analyzing them. What do you want to tell me right now? What activity that I am currently doing or about to do are you asking me to stop? What deep need of mine am I ignoring? What is the simplest, kindest thing I can do for myself in the next 10 minutes? At first, this may seem strange, but by practicing it regularly, you will perform a miracle. You will transform your fatigue from a solid wall you've been banging your head against into a door through which the most important revelations will begin to come to you. You will start to see clear patterns. Does fatigue hit when you are answering emails from a certain person? When you are working on a project that is repugnant to your soul? When you spend too much time on social media? Your symptom will become your diagnostician. The second exercise is called micro-Sabbath, or sacred nothing. Our culture is obsessed with doing. Even our rest has become a project to be optimized. We listen to useful podcasts, read smart books, exercise. We have forgotten how to just be. This exercise is aimed at training this atrophied muscle. Choose 1 or 2 15-minute slots in your day. Set an alarm. And during these 15 minutes, any purposeful activity is forbidden. No phones, no books, no podcasts, no chores. You can only do nothing. Sit in a chair and look out the window. Lie on the floor and listen to the sounds outside. Walk slowly around the room. Just breathe. Your mind will rebel. It will feed you to-do lists, anxieties, ideas. Your task is to gently notice this and return to nothing. The goal of this exercise is to create a tiny, sacred vacuum in your day. It is in such silence, free from the noise of the ego, that the quiet voice of the self gets a chance to be heard. This is not lost time. It is the most important and productive nothing you can afford. These practices, dialogue with fatigue and micro-Sabbath, are not just techniques. They are acts of cultivating a completely new kind of strength within yourself. A strength that the culture of achievement is silent about, because it does not lead to external success, but to inner wholeness. We have been taught to confuse strength with toughness. We have been led to believe that strength is the ability to force yourself, the ability to stand up when you want to lie down, the ability to work when there is no inspiration, the ability to smile when your soul is in pain. This is the strength of the ego, the strength of a warden, the strength of a conqueror, the strength of a tyrant. It is a noisy engine that runs on burning your own resources until it breaks down. And you already know where this strength leads, to emptiness. But there is another strength, quiet, deep, indestructible. It is the strength of the self. True strength is not the ability to force yourself to say yes when everything inside you is screaming no. True strength is the courage to hear that inner no and to respect it as a sacred veto. True strength is the courage to choose wholeness over productivity. It is the courage to turn down a project that promises money but kills the soul. It is the bravery to end a conversation that drains you. It is the valor to allow yourself a day of doing nothing in the midst of deadlines, because your inner compass points to the need for rest. This path, the path of listening rather than forcing, is much harder than any productivity diet. It is harder because it requires not iron discipline, but radical honesty with yourself. It is easy to force yourself to work for another hour. It is much harder to admit to yourself that this work no longer has meaning for you. It is easy to follow someone else's plan. It is infinitely more difficult to wait in silence until your own emerges. But I want you to hear this now. Every time you choose to listen to your fatigue instead of fighting it, you are showing true strength. Every time you allow yourself to be inefficient to preserve your inner peace, you are performing an act of great courage. This path may seem like a retreat. The world may see it as weakness, but you will know the truth. It is the only path that leads not to another achievement, but home, to yourself. We have come a long way in this hour, from feeling like a broken machine that needs to be fixed, to understanding the wisdom of the soul that is trying to save us. We have talked about the tyranny of the ego and the whisper of the self, about abandoned gardens and the sacred right to say no. And if there is one single truth, the main secret hidden in the very heart of your exhaustion, it is this. Energy is not a resource to be extracted. It is a state to be entered. The entire modern culture of productivity is built on a false premise, on the metaphor of energy as oil. We believe that its reserves are limited, that it needs to be extracted from external sources, from coffee, sleep, food, motivation, and then spent efficiently. We have become geologists and managers of our own life force, and this has exhausted us. But the wisdom of the soul offers another metaphor. Energy is not oil in a well. Energy is a river that flows on its own when its channel is clear. Life force is not what you do. It is what you allow yourself to be. It is the natural byproduct of a life lived in harmony with your true nature. It arises on its own when you are doing work that you love, when you are with people who nourish you, when you allow yourself to rest, to play, to dream. You have been searching for energy in the external world, as if a wave were searching for the ocean, not realizing that it is an inseparable part of it. Therefore, your task changes radically. Stop trying to light a fire. Stop looking for new, more efficient matches. Your task is simply to remove all the stones with which your ego, your fears, and your shoulds have blocked your inner spring. Remove the stone of self-judgment. Remove the stone of meaningless work. Remove the stone of toxic relationships. Create silence. Create space. And the spring will gush forth on its own. It cannot help but gush, because to flow is its nature. And when you stop blocking your spring with stones, when you begin to practice this trust in the inner flow, what does life become? Let's glimpse into this future for a moment. Imagine a life where rest is not a pitiful reward for grueling work, but a sacred and inviolable ritual necessary for wisdom and creativity. Imagine a life where your energy is your main compass, which you trust more than any to-do list or someone else's opinion. Where you make decisions not based on what is right or profitable, but on what gives you strength and what takes it away. Imagine waking up in the morning and your first question is not what must I do, but what wants to be lived through me today. Imagine the freedom to say no without guilt or apology, and to say yes only to that which makes your heart sing, and to say this yes with your entire being. Imagine that you work, create, love not out of a sense of duty or fear, not to fill an inner void, but out of an overflow. Because your inner spring is gushing so strongly that you simply cannot help but share this water with the world. This life is not a utopia for the chosen few. It is not a fantasy. It is not somewhere out there, beyond mountains of achievements. It is waiting for you right here, on the other side of your years-long, exhausting struggle with yourself. It begins the very moment you lay down your weapons. This vision of the future becomes a reality thanks to people like you. And for that, I want to thank you. Thank you for walking this path with us. Thank you for your trust, for your time, but above all, for your courage. It takes immense courage in our noisy, demanding world to stop and look into your own silence, into your own fatigue, rather than run from it. Your act is not just an act of personal healing. It is an act of creating a new, more humane culture. A culture where sensitivity is valued more than productivity, and the wisdom of the soul more than the logic of the ego. Every time you choose yourself, you give silent permission for another person to do the same. And know that you are no longer alone in this search. Right now, along with you, thousands of other people have made this journey. You are part of a growing, invisible tribe of seekers, a tribe of those who are tired of superficial answers and choose depth over speed, authenticity over approval. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. If this journey inward has been valuable to you, and you wish to continue on this path together, then I invite you to become part of our community. Subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss our next expeditions into the uncharted territories of the soul. We will continue to descend into the depths to find not the monsters we were taught to fear, but the forgotten treasures that are waiting for their time. And if during our conversation you thought of someone specific, a friend, a colleague, or a loved one who you feel is also desperately trying to win a war against themselves, share this video with them. It will not be just a repost. It will be an act of deep care, a silent message that may be more important than 1,000 words. I see you. Your fatigue makes sense. You are not alone. Your support in the form of likes and comments, in which you so bravely shared your stories, helps these ideas break through the noise of superficial content and find those who are searching for them in the silence of their exhaustion. Thank you once again. And remember, before you try to change the world, find the silence to hear your own.